Oh, I thought, oh, here it is. I thought I saw that before. I'm sorry.
Now we are.
Yeah, we know. Good afternoon. This is the Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for January 25th, 2021, 2 p.m. session. No public testimony is permitted during the review session. The first item is special order calendar, new cases, item number 16, 2016-1185A, 4514 and 4540 51st Street, Queens.
We have proof of service of initial application and of notice of hearing to officials. We don't have a community board recommendation, but I don't believe their action is expected for extensions of time. Transfer of ownership to the applicant contract vendee has been held up by litigation. Hence, the project has not yet started. I don't remember the reason for requiring sign off by November 1st, 2020 of all the various DOB applications, unless, as we've been talking about recently, this language is in lieu of obtaining a certificate of occupancy by that date. I think because we were acknowledging that sometimes you can't get a CO when there are outstanding applications and violations for other things in the building, elsewhere in the building. So maybe that's what it was about. The statement of facts that we reviewed is from October. I'd like to know what the status of the transfer is today, because the court order was a while ago already, and there was some indication that they had not yet accomplished a closing or an agreement, the final agreement. So what's going on now, since we have a few months already? And just a reminder, this is a request for a 4-year extension of time. Vice Chair Shanda?
I had no additional comments.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown?
No additional comments.
Commissioner Sheta?
Nothing further from me. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Shabeta?
No additional comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Item number 17, 2017-213BZ, 1808 Coney Island Avenue, Brooklyn.
We have proof of service of initial application and of notice of hearing to officials. We have letters of support from Assembly Member Simbrowitz and New York State Senator Harcum. We have an unsigned BSA form indicating that the community board has waived its recommendation. So it wasn't actually signed. The name of the community board, I think it's district manager, is on there, but I can't tell if, is that a BSA form that is submitted to them, or is that what they submit to us on a BSA form? I'm a little confused why we have a community board submission on a BSA form. They're supposed to have their own forms. Yeah, Jella, go ahead. Oops, you have to unmute.
We provide them with those.
I'm not sure about that form, but I did speak to the district manager, the gentleman that's listed there. And he told me verbally over the phone that he was waiving that the community board was waiving the recommendation. And then they sent that in a few days later, but I'm not sure if it's like an official BSA form from us. I definitely didn't send him anything like that.
It's on an official BSA form. That's what's weird. But anyway, so it was a conditional recommendation, and it says,
Madam,
agreed to the following.
Madam Chair, there was a letter that I have, which is a waive.
Yes, it's a waiver, but then it says summarize the reasons for the community board recommendation or attach a copy of the full report. And then I have, unless I'm reading from the wrong thing, something about 24/7 security cameras, a security guard. Did I cut and paste that onto the wrong application?
No, that was the previous, I believe that was the original.
That was from 2017. When we had heard it in 2017, the community board had written these conditions. So the problem is the most recent amendment, it doesn't have a date on it.
That's a recent recommendation.
The recommendation to waive does not have an official date. So I'm just going by the submission date, which was on January 7th.
Okay, so the 2018 recommendation, because I lost it, the train in my notes. I'm just picking up on that because we didn't get anything more than this waiver from the community board. So, and so the applicant has to respond to whether they did those things. The community board asked for 24/7 security cameras, a security guard at the location, and so on. And then they're asked, they just want to make sure not more than 20 beds are proposed and not expand in the future to additional buildings on the block and so on. Those were the conditions the last time. Obviously, my mistake, of course, they don't have the cameras yet, or even though the building, there is a building there that's being used for them, by them, that's 2 stories, so maybe it's relevant. So this is an application to amend the variance that we granted in 2018 that relied on the Cornell doctrine for deference for educational facilities. So the board needs to understand whether the modifications implicate, the proposed modifications implicate the 2018 conclusion that the project was entitled to such deference. That's why when they submitted earlier last year for a letter of substantial compliance, we denied the letter request because it went to the potential findings, or potentially went to the findings. There is some explanation that for cost reasons, the originally planned cellar has to be eliminated because of underpinning costs, and that the revised project will rely on the existing 6-foot 10-inch cellar that's excavated to 8 foot 6 inches. In lieu of underpinning, my understanding is there is planned a stepped foundation, even though they didn't actually show us anything to that effect. The section through the building shows the 8 foot 6 inch cellar running from the front wall to the rear property line, but all of the cellar spaces are shown as being devoted to mechanical rooms with an 8 foot 6 inch floor to floor height. The cellar plan does not reflect any step foundation or any areas where the cellar is only 6 foot 10 inches floor to ceiling, as described in the architect's letter. This sort of picks up what Commissioner Sheta was stating in an earlier hearing. An applicant and the architect cannot rely on we, the board, cannot rely on a footnote in a letter to explain a set of plans. The drawings have to show what's claimed. So the idea that the drawing shows what is apparently a continuous 8 foot 6 cellar throughout the entire site, give or take one little spot that's inexplicably missing, isn't okay. And you can't say, no, it's in the letter, or that's how we explain it, because the drawings do not show that. The mechanical rooms shown on this revised proposal are, the way they're shown, are 4 times the size of the one that was shown in the approved plans. And there's no explanation for this. What in the world do you need so much mechanical space for? The statement of facts argues that because the ceiling height is no longer 12 feet, the program that had originally been planned for the cellar can no longer be provided. Specifically, that was a dining room and a working kitchen and laundry, which we were told in the original application materials were critical elements in the operation of the facility as a place where the residents of the building could learn cooking skills, gather for group learning sessions, learn and participate in the building's housekeeping, etc. So I'm not understanding why the reduction in ceiling height to a completely workable 8 feet, because 6 feet for the structure, results in elimination of the kitchen and dining area and what the possible need for all that mechanical space is. And in the utilization materials, they state that the kitchen crew, so apparently it's a collection of students, of members and students of this facility. Kitchen crew members prepare meals daily for the program, maintain cleanliness of the kitchen, prepare menus for the rest of the week, take stock of inventory and order products for the pantry. So all of that now is not occurring on this site. And if you have 16 residents at the other site and 20 at this site, it means that you're not a kitchen crew member very often on this site, if ever. So I was rather disturbed by that. The modified utilization study confusingly moves most program descriptions into the footnotes, making it unclear whether any of the described activities take place at 1808, this site, anymore. The modified bathrooms now have laundry rooms in each in each one of them on the dormitory floors, but the shower rooms are no longer ADA compliant, and I don't think that's allowed. And by the way, the cost estimate allowed for ADA compliant showers, but none of these showers are compliant, and they were before. I don't understand the analysis of cost savings resulting from the modified cellar. Why would there be a savings on HVAC of $338,000? I didn't understand that, given what kind of a HVAC system it is. The mechanical area, as I said, is 4 times larger than the original. And also, why would a kitchen cost $150,000? I'd like to know what kind of kitchen that was that's now being replaced with a warming pantry. The DASNY estimate shows that the $150,000 is an allowance for equipment, but I don't know what that's based on. That is one serious commercial kitchen that you're talking about for equipment of $150,000. So you would only have a commercial kitchen if you were planning on actually teaching commercial cooking skills. Otherwise, it could be a kitchen of more residential nature, and there is no way the equipment costs $150,000, or none of us would have kitchens. And all this by way of reminding that the establishment of the educational component of this program took several hearings because the applicant had not provided us with a programmatic needs analysis at the outset. In 2018, when we were learning about the role of the facility at 1830 relative to this site, Commissioner Otley Brown stated clearly that, quote, teaching has to be in connection with this geographic site. So I'm seeing this being whittled away into strictly a dormitory and administrative offices, and that's not what we agreed to at the several hearings that where we discussed this. We also stated at the time, if the argument is that this building is linked to the 1830 building, then provide the floor plans and educational program at the 1830 building. And we still don't have the floor plans, or don't have associated with this one, the floor plans. And we do have this revised utilization study that seems to indicate that almost everything now goes on at 1830, which was not sort of how we established the educational component at this site. We were told that on-site learning for residents is critical to the program's success, and that studying comes before and homework after dinner and household chores. The May 11th submission includes a very clear description of how the 1830 program works. This is a quote from the previous sets of hearing. Includes a very clear description of how the 1830 program works, and indicates that high school students are in restart classes from 9:30 to 2:30 and work on their homework after dinner and chores. So my concern is if they're walking back and forth between the two buildings in order to eat every single time, then you're not going to get that kind of continuity of flow of homework and so on, related to the eating and cooking experiences. The alternative in this proposal shows a warming pantry in lieu of a kitchen, and makes clear that residents will be eating their real meals off-site or eating poorly from delivered meals that they won't cook themselves. I actually don't see how students will, quote, gain independence, as is stated in the cover letter, if they aren't even cooking their own meals on site. I'm having a lot of trouble with the loss of the kitchen in terms of how dormitories work. For instance, in a college dormitory setting, if if the dormitory has a kitchen, then the student, and actually I went to a school where we had a full kitchen related to our bedrooms. And so we hung out together because we cooked together. And that seems to be the goal, to encourage and teach independent living that these students so desperately need. Furthermore, the result of eliminating the cellar dining room is that there will be only one place in the building for all 20 residents to gather or to get away from their tight dorm rooms. That is the multi-purpose room on the top floor, or on the second to last floor. And that's not conducive to encouraging residents to work and socialize on site. The architect describes ancillary space as complying with section 814.6 of the, I forget what it is, that's a health code or one of those codes. But the rec room is only 619 square feet, so I don't know what the ancillary services are. Ancillary space in that code means space for living, dining, social, and counseling activities. So we need to see an accounting for that. The project is not shown as having a trash room. It must. That's standard for all BSA projects, and where food is served on site, we require refrigerated trash for perishables. There are small units for this. It's not a major expense. If you're just feeding 20 people, you can buy one of these compact units. They're not expensive. I looked, and that's standard for all of our projects, and that's to prevent poor management of trash on the street. To be clear, it was presented to us in 2018 that there would be no elevator overrun. And I'm going to the sort of changes to the shape of the building. They need to verify that this will continue to be the case because no elevator overrun is shown on the drawings. The building is extremely tall in this location. We discussed this at the other hearings, and the reason for the brick finish wrapping all the way around was to present some respect to the community in light of its height. Shifting to stucco, which in fact, the way it's being applied here, and I did a lot of research on the way it's being applied, is sort of a hybrid ephes. It's galvanized mesh installed over insulation, and the insulation is rigid insulation, and then it's stuccoed. And I read a lot about this and the amount of cracking that you're going to see because the masonry moves at one rate, the insulation moves at another rate, and the thin mesh that's attached to the insulation won't prevent the cracking of the stucco. So I'm looking at, and the other issue of this is these are very tall blank sidewalls that will be visible from a great distance. So it's not just the immediate buildings. So if there's interest in changing the material, and I understand that brick is a very installation heavy material. In other words, you need a bricklayer and it's one row of brick at a time kind of thing. There are other materials that could be used that would show an architectural solution that is of quality and shows respect of the neighborhood through design. And also my concern is about durability. I don't want this to be something that looks terrible in 5 years. It looked good for a minute while I was up, and 5 years from now it looks terrible. So you can even look at durability of brick. Brick's endurance is 100 years. So I'm not saying the building needs to have a durability of 100 years, which would be certainly a nice thing, but it certainly should be 30 years. And we were very specific about that conversation in our last hearing. With respect to height and saving money, so I was looking at, I understand that they need to reduce the costs of the building. We spoke in 2018 about the overly administrative nature of this building that has the entire first floor devoted to administration. So I ask, why not instead eliminate the 6th floor and shift the public functions down to the first floor, eliminating the administrative functions. If the idea is to send residents over to the other building to share functions, why not instead keep the administration at the other building and continue to have this building operate semi-autonomously as was proposed in 2018? I think this proposal is whittling away at the program that keeps this project autonomous and which supports the educational deference finding. And there wasn't an adequate amount of time spent on that issue by the applicant in their statement of facts or anything. And now I really would like to hear, why can't administration be located in the other place? And then you retain the dining room and kitchen in this location instead of making the students go back and forth between the two buildings and then potentially undermine the application. Those are my comments. Vice Chair Shanda?
Thank you. I am sympathetic towards the need for trying to keep the cost of the project to that is feasible and that would achieve the project. However, I would like a little bit of clarification with regards to the moving of the kitchen and the dining services away from the building, how it would still maintain the same programmatic need as it was expressed as part of the prior grant. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown.
Although excuse me, I saw from both sets of plans that the amount of pedagogical spaces did not change. So the second floor is still laid out in the same fashion and provides the same amount of small classrooms and one large classroom. However, when I did look at the new plan, it is disturbing to me that they did get rid of the kitchen, because I think that if you're taking care of these young people 24/7, it's just hard to believe that they're going to get balanced meals from a microwave. And once the weather starts getting cold, they're not likely to leave at night to go a few doors down to get a good proper dinner. They're more likely to put something like, you know, those little bitty frozen sandwiches in the microwave and call it a day. And that's not providing a healthy diet for young people who really need a healthy diet to help them be strong enough to withstand all of the other risks that they have to relapsing. So I think personally, they could do something with that multi-purpose room in terms of making more of it into a kitchen, putting in all of the appliances you would have in a regular kitchen, and use foldable, movable tables that they could put down for meals and then fold up and stack against the wall during the day when they want to use it as a lounge. And I think they should really explore doing that. Otherwise, they're going to shortchange the young people. It's not fair to them.
Thank you. Commissioner Shetta?
Thank you, Chair. I have to say that the drawings for this project were like very confusing for me, especially the cellar. Like you, Chair, mentioned, looking at the cellar plan that they submitted this time, it sounds like you can't see any like reduction in size. That the cellar goes like full lot to all the way to 100 feet deep. So I'm not sure what kind of reduction they are talking about here. When you look at that, when you compare the plan for the cellar and the cross section, they seem to be inconsistent. So they need to look into that. In addition to this, my understanding is that the reduction is going to be like from the end. So it might be like a 20-foot wide strip, and it's going from inside outside. But when you look at the aerial images, I believe if they have an issue, they mentioned that the issue is the need for the underpinning. And looking at the aerial photo and the neighboring buildings, I'm not sure if they have an issue at the back. I believe the issue should be like along the side, one of the sides. I believe this is the southern side. So I'm not sure if they actually like looked at the facts and then wrote the statement of facts. I'm not sure. I'm waiting for them to educate me on that. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think the aerial photos change it overnight. So we'll see how we respond to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Shabeta?
Thank you, Chair. I have, most of my notes have been said already. I think that I'm a big supporter of this program and what they do. I was sorry to see that they ran into this obstacle, and I agree. It does seem that their solution to it is going to not be best for the children that they serve. I hope they hear these comments and respond quickly, because honestly, I would think at this point they would have started getting this project underway by now.
Yes.
The community really needs this.
Agreed, agreed. So I do have to say, I think everyone's sympathetic to this project, to the program, but not to undermine the purpose of it by blunt instrument cost savings. Yeah, Commissioner Sheta.
Yeah, I forgot to add that I'm not very supportive to mixing up finishes when it comes to the facade of the building. I believe it should be one way or another. It mix and break with the stucco like that. It's kind of very weird, especially if you consider, like you said, the plain wall that like goes from the ground level all the way to the top of the building. It doesn't look that nice, and they need to like think of, if some side they are obligated to make some side like that, the other elevation should be something aesthetically more pleasant. So I believe they need to work on something with the front elevation.
Yes. So I want to reiterate that, you know, a building that stands so high above every place else is functionally a three-dimensional structure. I mean, all buildings are three-dimensional, but you don't always see the sides. The very three-dimensional sculpture, essentially, that will be visible from a great distance. And the architect has to do a much better job of making the building a piece of architecture and not just responding to the client's cost savings demand by saying, oh, I don't know, we'll just stucco it and like leave it at that. There's so many materials that are easily installed that will be cheaper than installing brick. And they have to pursue that. Good materials with proven track records. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on.
2018-8BZ, 1820 Cropsey Avenue, Brooklyn.
Oops. Okay, just. Sorry, getting to the beginning of my. Sorry. Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials. There is no hearing notice requirement for extensions of time. Community board has no objection to the application. This is for an extension of time, but applicant has to demonstrate compliance with the terms of the grant. Photos show at least one door is in desperate need of painting, so probably it's more than one door. Trying to figure out even how come the door has this paint that's peeling from the top. It's weird. I'd like to know what the current status of the CO application is. It looks like everything has, based on BIS, it looks like everything's been signed off related to prior applications and there are no violations. So what is the status? If it hasn't been applied for, then I want to see the application forms completed and filed. Okay, Vice Chair Shanda.
Thank you. I also had a similar comment, which is the applicant needs to go through the compliance and indicate how it meets all the prior compliance conditions.
That's it?
Okay. Yeah.
Brown?
I have no additional comments.
Commissioner Sheta?
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
Commissioner Shabeta?
No additional comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Next item, sorry, new cases and appeals calendar. Item number 19, 2020-3A, 142-18 Hook Creek Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application and proof of notice of hearing to DOB, Community Board, and the Borough President, which is what's required by our rules. Community Board, I don't have a recommendation from them. Do we have a recommendation?
I don't
I don't think so.
think so.
So the community voted to approve 42, all in favor.
Ah, okay, thank you. I started to write it and then I didn't finish my sentence. Okay. Fire department requests more time to review the apparatus access. So they're meeting with their apparatus crew. So we need Department of Transportation on this application in order to move forward. I wonder whether the Department of Finance has actually signed off on the tax lot subdivision because it doesn't yet appear on their website. And I just wanted to note that on the DOB on BIZ, there was an application for a tax lot subdivision. But I don't know if it was also for a zoning lot subdivision because I don't see that as having been filed with new zoning exhibits. The subdivision employs this acute angle that enables the rear yard regulations to be avoided. It gets converted into a side yard, so then you don't have to have the 30 feet between the house and that property line. So the existing house then is only a few feet from the property line. I'm actually don't know whether it was approved as a zoning lot subdivision by DOB, or if it is even proposed to be a zoning lot subdivision, and if it complies with a tax lot, or sorry, with a distance between houses rule for two buildings on the same zoning lot. I don't know the answer, but I'd be surprised. I'm surprised that DOB would have permitted it as a zoning lot subdivision. And so I'd like the applicant to clarify that. So those were my comments. Vice Chair Shanda.
I was a little confused with the application. It wasn't quite clear to me from the documentation, documents provided, the portion of the subject block that fronts, portion of the subject block front that city has acquired. The applicant states that a portion of it was acquired to widen the Hook Creek Boulevard, and the drawing shows several lines and it shows there's an extension of 139th Avenue. So it wasn't quite clear. So it would be helpful if the applicant either visually and or through statement of facts clarify that.
Sorry,
The acquisition.
I didn't understand what it is to clarify. Could you say that again?
So the statement of fact says that at some point city had acquired the block front, the portion of the entire this subject block, which is 13616. City at some point had acquired a certain frontage of it. This is to improve Hook Creek Boulevard. It's not quite clear from the diagram what portion was acquired. I mean, they have provided the court orders and the map changes, but the map changes, the acquisition maps was not diagrammatically very clear to indicate what portion is under city ownership and therefore what portion remains under this property. And therefore, how do we analyze the zoning lot from that? So that's really where I'm trying to get at. So if the applicant can diagrammatically show it on the plan, the portion that has been acquired by the city, and it is safe to say if the city has gone through this process very recently to acquire for street widening, it's likely not going to acquire any more in the near future. So the granting makes sense, but then I want to understand how the site sits and if this building is sitting on the lot that it's supposed to sit on. That's really what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Brown,
I have no comments.
Commissioner Sheta,
I have no comments on this.
Commissioner Shivetta.
Thank you, Chair. It seems like a reasonable ask for a GCL 36. I have no other comments.
It's a DCL,
DCL 35, not a 36.
I'm sorry, 35.
right? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, so this concludes the public review session. We will now commence with the public hearing. Okay, this is the public hearing for January 25th, 2021, 2 p.m. session. The first item is special order calendar new cases, item number 16, 2016-1185A. This is Neil Weisbard, 4514 51st Street, Queens.
Hi, good afternoon, Neil Weisbard.
Good afternoon.
Okay, you don't have to be sworn in, you can proceed.
Hi, I listened to review session and just a couple notes. The community board did have a hearing on this application. We actually had 3 hearings and unanimously approved, no issues at all. And second, here's the status of the court case.
Oh, sorry. Can you, did they submit a written?
I'm not sure.
I don't
guess-
remember seeing it, or I could get it, we'll get it. Okay.
Sorry, we didn't have it, I don't think. So can you submit it, get it from them and submit, please?
Yes.
Okay, if they held 3 hearings, they have a resolution. Otherwise-
I will get that recommendation after I'm done with you, and I'll forward that to Ms. Matias. So there is a court case between the current owner and the applicant, who's the potential purchaser of the site. The seller has filed it, and the court found in favor of the applicant. The seller has filed an appeal, and unfortunately, the court is not in session due to COVID. So we're just waiting for the referee to render a decision. But all documents have been filed, answers filed, and once the court resumes, we presume that we'll be given title to this, or we'll be able to proceed to the closing and legally obtain title to the site.
Wait a minute, I thought you said the seller filed an appeal.
That's what we're waiting for the referee's decision on.
Oh, so the referee to decide whether to accept the appeal,
Yes, or reject the appeal.
one or the other.
Council, the courts are active. Are you saying that they're not active in this particular county, or?
Yes, James Coakley should be in the lobby. He is the applicant's representative. He can talk more about that. Do you see him?
Yes, he's here. Mr. Coakley, if you can add anything.
That's correct. This was done through mediation, not before a judge, and we're actually not waiting on whether or not they're going to accept the appeal or not. We're waiting on his decision. So the appeal paperwork has been submitted. I just want to clarify, that point. Again, we as the applicant and the purchaser won the first round, but for $150 fee, anybody can file an appeal. So they did, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Our council has had email dialogue with the referee all along, and again, we do expect to come out on the affirmative on this judgment, and then we can proceed with the closing within about 30 days thereafter, 6 weeks, something like that.
Okay. But what if the appeal were granted? What type of time are we talking about?
No, it's whether or not he reverses his initial decision.
Oh, so wait a minute. So the referee, because this is a mediation as opposed
Yes.
to, oh, I see. So the question is whether the referee will uphold his own decision or.
And there was no new testimony or anything else added, so it's a bit of a delay tactic in our opinion, but I'm not a lawyer, so.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Weisbard, do you want to continue? Is there anything else?
There's nothing else to add.
Okay, so that was, let me see.
2016-1185A.
No, I'm just looking at my notes. I don't
Oh,
remember
sorry.
requiring sign on. Okay. Okay, so we just really need the community board, and if you could just give us a written update as we've just heard, so we can put that into the record, and then we'll go to the public.
Okay, well, I'll do that.
Okay, so the case we're discussing right now is 2016-1185A, 4514 and 4550, 51st Street, Queens. If you wish to speak, it's 646-558-8656. Zoom webinar ID number is 918-2185-4286. Passcode is 482567.
Okay. So, Mr. Weisbard, how much time would you need to submit basically that summary of where we are and the community boards, assuming that they actually had?
I can submit that by next week, as soon as, tomorrow.
Okay, all right, so just 1 second. So there's 2 people in the waiting room, one of whom is an applicant's representative. The other person, I don't know if Mr. Gambino would like to speak to this application, please raise your Zoom hand. The application is
2016-1185A. Sorry.
4514 51st Street in Queens. So I'll give you a second to raise your hand. Otherwise, you said you could submit, let's just say 2 weeks. Is that okay? So assuming Mr. Gambini doesn't want to speak, Gambino, I don't think we have any other comments. Does anyone, let me just go back to our screen. Does anyone object to us closing this? Nobody. Okay, so I would like to then make a motion to close this.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Shepherd,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 17, 2017-213BZ, 1808 Coney Island Avenue, Brooklyn.
Hi, Ms. Matias.
Hi. Anyone else joining you, Ben?
Yes, we have with us today, we have Casa Coloris from Posen Architects. His video just turned on. And we also have Karen Carlini, Associate Director of Dynamic Youth Community.
Okay, and that's Costas, right? Costa? Yeah, okay.
Yes, correct.
And Stuart is also in the room? Stuart's also in the
Yeah,
room.
let's swear in Stuart as well.
Yes.
Okay, so everybody ready?
We have.
Somebody turn off their background noise or something, whatever.
Has their YouTube on, you must turn it off to participate. Turn off your YouTube video and just be on Zoom with us. Otherwise, we get
Ready? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
I do.
Ms. Carlini?
turn off.
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay, Mr. Beckerman?
Stuart, you're on mute.
And Costa? is
Yeah,
already
I'm
did,
off
right?
my mute. I'm off mute.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you, Stuart. Okay, Mr. Stark, you may proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Matias. My name is Ben Stark. I'm with Hershen, Singer, and Epstein for the applicant Dynamic Youth Community. We attended virtually the board's executive session a moment ago and heard the board's issues and questions that need to be addressed mostly in a follow-up submission, given the number of comments. We would like to take an opportunity, though, to again introduce what this amendment is, the reasons for it, and then talk next steps so that we can hopefully resolve these issues expeditiously. As the chair had summarized earlier, this is an amendment to a 2018 variance that will notably reduce some of the program elements in dynamic youth communities at dynamic youth communities cellar level of the new building proposed for 1808 Coney Island Avenue. The application also proposes some amendments to the materials that would be provided on the building's secondary facades, as well as a new guardrail in the rear yard. This amendment application to dynamic youth communities previously approved 20-bed community residence is an outgrowth of a cost-cutting or cost-saving exercise. As we summarized in our initial submission and a bit more in our notice of comment submission, the process to build this community residence building is a real partnership between Dynamic Youth Community and the State of New York's Office of Addiction Services and Support. Unfortunately, the process to finance buildings of this typology involve a bit of a horse before cart and then cart before horse that we sometimes see in other publicly financed projects. Here, a very involved construction cost estimate for the approved design in 2018 was per state policy undertaken only after the 2018 variance was approved, and that sparked a domino process of trying to find a way to bring down the cost of this proposed building, so to be in line with the funding commitment that the state had previously given when Dynamic Youth Community had responded to the state's request for proposal. So the choice of how those cost savings would be realized came out of that partnership. It was both in decisions reached collectively between Dynamic Youth Community and its state funding partner, as well as the state's project managers, the dormitory authority of the state of New York. As I already said, the proposed changes, and as the chair so nicely put it, it's mostly to what's going on below grade, modifying the proposed foundation design to bring the costs down. We apologize for any confusion in the series of plans that the board has seen. This is a process, and yes, we had approached the board about a letter of substantial compliance last spring, and that actually was prior to us obtaining further information about the subsurface conditions here. At the time, in the spring of 2020, the chosen subsurface design would have been a true square footage reduction of the cellar. It was going to be a partial cellar that utilized the footprint of the existing building at 1808 Coney Island Avenue. A geotechnical report prepared in the mid-fall, in October sometime, basically determined that design would not be feasible. It would not remove the need to underpin the neighboring property to the south. So what was landed on is the design that you see today, which still involves a full cellar. The problem is, though, that it doesn't allow for a full 12-foot floor-to-floor height cellar, which is it.
I need to interrupt you. I need to hear all of this from the architect because we are so confused. You said it involves a full cellar, but the letter from the architect says it doesn't, and I don't want to keep going down this confusing path. So let's just jump right to the architect. Is that Mr. Koulouris?
That's correct. Good afternoon.
Start over and talk about what it is the proposal actually is, because the drawings don't show what we're reading about, and maybe the statement of facts or the letters or whatever are not coordinated with the drawings or something. Okay, let's start there.
Okay, great. Basically, in a very simple nutshell, what we're trying to propose here is to retain the existing cellar as it currently is today. As Ben mentioned, we did some pretty serious geotechnical investigations over the past couple of months, and what we found was that the neighboring building um, basically it does not have a footing. It's built on rubble. The rubble only extends 6 inches down below grade. That coupled with the fact that the borings came back, that very, very poor soil conditions as well. And basically our structural engineering team said that the neighboring building was not a candidate for underpinning. So the solution that really the only solution that we could come up with is let's keep the existing cellar as it is. Let's reinforce what we can without undermining the neighboring building. And let's now go back and in essence create a cellar in the rear where we don't have.
Sorry, before you go on, you say neighboring building. This location has buildings on 2 sides. Are we only talking about one side or both sides? Is step footing, a step foundation your solution? Like, we don't understand because the drawings don't tell us.
There's one neighboring building, and the other side of the property is an open parking lot. There's no building on the other side.
You're talking about the 100 feet long side, right?
Correct. Of which.
Okay, and go ahead.
I'm talking about the as you're looking at the building, the neighboring building on the left, right? That's the only building that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So both
And
the
what you're saying is that wall, the adjacent wall for that building is founded on rubble and it's just 6 inches below grade?
Correct. No footing.
Does this building have a cellar or no?
Both buildings have a cellar. It's a party wall condition, so it's a party wall, which further complicates things. And the party wall only extends 6 inches below grade at cellar.
Finished floor of that cellar, the existing cellar.
Correct.
Just 6 inches.
That's it.
Okay, so as far as you match your excavation is not deeper than the bottom of the footing, theoretically, you don't have an issue. So if you want to do that, wouldn't you be able to build a cellar?
Well, what we're saying is, in order not to undermine the party wall and the neighbor, we're saying we're going to introduce an inverted, if you would, an inverted step footing in our cellar, so that the footing that we're putting in is inverted, right? It's not going down below the existing slab; it's above the existing slab. It's quite a hefty footing. It's approximately 4 to 5 foot in depth. And yes, I agree. Although the drawings don't indicate it and such, we tried explaining it in letter form. In essence, what's going to happen is that the existing cellar will basically be of no use. You're going to have half of it with a headroom height of 3 feet, and the other half, the parking lot side of the cellar. Don't forget, we're only talking about 20-foot width overall. So if you can imagine, the first 10 feet in width would be consumed with this inverted footing that's going to independently support the structure above, the new structure above. And the other side of our basement, we're going to try to retain the 6'10", lower it a little bit in order to get the headroom height required for the egress corridor.
So wait a second.
Isn't it?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Isn't it more beneficial to you and to your neighbor to, instead of putting this 4 feet deep foundation element above grade, and you know what? It's going to impose loads on the adjacent footing either way, because you're putting something new that's going to carry dead and life loads next to an existing footing. So some of the new loads will shed to that existing wall footing, which is, like you said, it's flimsy. It's just rubble and it's 6 inches below finished floor. So it's going to be impacted anticipatedly. So isn't it better to, instead of putting this 4 feet thick foundation element above grade, just put it below grade and do it in segments? And you could benefit from whatever cellar space you want to build. And in the meantime, make sure that the adjacent building is
That train of thought, I mean, it definitely seems to make sense, even from a cost perspective. But the bottom line is that our structural engineers were not comfortable with that approach. They felt that, you know, doing this inverted footing, it's independent of the party wall. We're not relying on the party wall. So in essence, we're building a new 6-story structure that's independent of anything else that's existing, even from a load perspective.
Maybe for the next,
I'm not,
you should bring along your engineer, because this seems to be, and you know, you may not be aware of this, but our engineer, Commissioner Sheta, is extremely experienced in this subject.
Yes.
Direct field experience, and so sometimes has great ideas that will save you money and better solution, etc. So yeah, we're trying to understand, because this is running directly to the program and the viability of the variance. Where this can work, okay? But I also have a question about this. You're saying that you're having this step footing on that side, on the, what'd you say, on the left side?
On the party wall side, correct.
Party wall side, that's the left side when you're looking at the building. How far into the building does this step footing extend?
It extends the length of the party wall. So it's the length of the.
No, how far, what is the front to back measurement?
Yeah, the front to back measurement is the extent of the existing building, of the existing buildings.
No. All right, so then let me just say the left
The width?
measurement.
It's about 10 feet. It's half and half.
It's
right.
Step footing is 10 foot.
It's the angle that the engineers engineered. It's a 2-to-1 angle. So you have to take a 2-to-1 angle. And it just winds up being almost half the width of the cellar, which is about 10 feet.
2-to-1 from where?
From the face of the party wall, right? You take that imaginary angle of repose, as we say, it's a 2-to-1 angle.
Yeah, but you're looking at this footing like it's sitting at the street level, more or less. It's not. It's sitting all the way down at the cellar floor minus 6 inches, right?
It's sitting at the cellar floor. The bottom of our proposed footing would be at the cellar floor minus 6 inches, the bottom of the footing. And from there, we're going to go up the 4 or 5 feet at an angle. Like I said, it's an inverted, pictured as an inverted footing, right? Instead of going down below grade, you're building this footing above grade. Or above.
You're gonna go up into your cellar, you're saying?
Correct.
Yep.
Please bring your structural engineer next time.
Yeah, definitely. And bring the structural engineer and provide us with drawings of what the proposal is. It
We
sounds
do
like
have drawings.
calling a flying buttress.
In a way.
But unlike Notre Dame, your flying buttress is continuing for the entire length of your building instead of at intervals. And that's pretty strange to me, because of Notre Dame fall down in the fire, the flying buttresses are not as hefty as what you're proposing, it seems. But I don't know.
We gotta need a cross section as well. If you can, please submit a cross section of the proposed footing configuration. You don't want to be on a discussion or something like that, and later on something happens, so you're in the news. I don't want to be that guy.
I understand. We do have a fully developed set of structural drawings. I can certainly share. That's not an issue at all.
Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Mhm.
This is for the architect. Just so I understand, So the inverted step footing would run along the entire length of the shared wall, which in the diagram is shaded as gray.
Correct.
So the rest of it will not have step footing.
Correct.
So I'm not an engineer. So my question is, can that portion of it be, that portion of the building will have a clear 8.5 feet floor to ceiling height. It would not be encumbered by the inverted. So why couldn't that area be used for kitchen and dining area, which is where originally it was proposed? I understand the front portion, whatever the solution is, I'm just taking the solution that you have proposed as is, as not being feasible for a habitable, occupiable space. So you're dedicating that mechanical. Why couldn't then the portion in the back, which is free and clear of this inverted step foundation, be used towards that and maybe lowered by a couple of foot to achieve you that 9-foot height, or even 10 foot, to provide the kitchen and the
So to be clear, the back portion of the proposed cellar, we're not going to have any headroom height because we don't have the inverted footing.
What?
We are.
So the back portion you won't. So it would be completely 8.5 foot clear floor to ceiling height. So why couldn't you, A, isn't that good enough of a space for you to provide your kitchen and dining area? And B, if you think you need more space, could that not be dropped by a foot or so without and not be an encumbrance to the adjacent building and the footing issues?
Sure, I can answer that. So the answer is really twofold. One, there's a cost implication of over excavating or excavating more than we don't necessarily have to. The lot itself is very, very narrow, as we know. So we really want to try to stick to a code minimum height, 8'6". Although there's nobody, there's nothing that says that we can't go 10 other than cost. But because the front or the existing cellar is now, in essence, almost, let's just say, if you take out the inverted footing and you take out the elevator pit and you take out the stair, you're left with basically nothing. So the only chance or the only place to put, mechanicals would be in the back, in the proposed area, in the rear of the cellar. So we have, 2 water heaters, we have boiler, we have RPZ, we have, electrical service. Yes, on paper, it does look like a big mechanical space.
I have to interrupt you there. It's not on paper. These are drawings that are supposed to be showing what actually is the case. And what they're showing is a clear open cellar with an 8'6" floor to underside, floor to floor height. So please don't talk about on paper. You're the architect. Draw the drawings to show what's actually going to be the case so that we can understand what's going on. Because right now, I'm not seeing what you're saying we should be seeing. And that's why I'm afraid that we're spinning our wheels here, because we're trying to guess what the drawings do not show, and I'm upset with that. So, and then we're going to have a further discussion about the nature of that step footing, and maybe it doesn't need to extend in all the places that you're thinking. Therefore, it gives some more room for the mechanicals and so on, and maybe some mechanicals could go on the roof, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's move on and don't say on paper, because that's what the whole point of drawings is. If it weren't for drawings, which are on paper, no buildings would be built. The contractors follow the drawings, something on paper. So that's pretty upsetting to me. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, the building sections that were provided don't show the footing and how it's causing the height difference. If you had taken the section that is the width of the building, if you had provided that section and provide a little bit of the detail, maybe we would have been able to follow the narrative that you're stating, that you're giving us now. So we only have the lengthwise section.
So actually a lengthwise section taken in 2 places. through the step footing, through the center that's not affected by the step footing, and then cross sections, lateral sections taken in a few places would tell the story, as would a floor plan properly labeled. So I don't want to spend more time on this because we don't understand what's going on. Let's move to the next part of the discussion. Okay.
If you can get us some photos for the interior, looking at the walls, looking at the ceiling. I don't want to go for a site visit because I don't want to be involved in visiting something that's going to be subject to structural alteration like this. But if get us like as many photos as you can from inside, that would be helpful in the discussion as well. And what kind of existing framing? Is it steel framing? Is it wood framing? Is it concrete? For the existing building configuration.
Thank you, Commissioner. We might have trouble getting photos inside of the neighbor's cellar.
No, I'm talking about your part. I understand. You can get it on the other side, that's fine. If not, just your side.
Okay, definitely. That's easy. Okay, there were a number of issues. It almost kind of points to us just trying to follow up in a follow-up submission without, grasping for trying to make progress on one or the other. But I do want to talk about the proposed program with the kids eating at 1830. I think there was some commentary during the executive session that suggests that this variance's entitlement to Cornell deference really fundamentally relies on the program having the kitchen in the cellar or having the kitchen somewhere in the building. And we don't, as an applicant team, totally agree with that statement. We believe very strongly that the application is entitled to Cornell deference because there is direct educational instruction going to the kids who live in this building, happening on site, on the zoning lot, in spaces within the building that are not being modified by this application. Though the direct educational instruction is being given by New York City Department of Education teachers, as was attested to during the 2018 variance, and none of that is going to change with the removal of the kitchen and the dining spaces. Further, the 2018 variance, we had during oral testimony for the 2018 variance, a discussion regarding the symbiosis between the two facilities. So on the record of 2018 variance is narrative that describes how the kids who will be living at 1808 Coney Island Avenue will on a daily basis be traveling to 1830 Coney Island Avenue. We acknowledge that the reasoning that the kids were going to be moving between the facilities every day was not meal related. It was so they could attend their outpatient program at 1830. But we think it's important to bring that up to remind the board that some amount of foot travel between the facilities was assumed and was a component of their original approval. And so that the proposed amendment really would be resulting in a few additional foot trips on a daily basis. That is a real impact, but it's an impact that we believe does not give rise to not being able to find any of the 5 findings required by 7221.
So before you go on with that, I just want to jump in. So this was portrayed to us initially, and by the way, it wasn't an easy lift for us to get educational out of this. With this case, we dug in very deeply, right? It was portrayed to us that this was effectively a sort of an autonomous or nearly autonomous dormitory study situation where the students would be living and working on site. And in fact, we even heard things like that they would learn trades, for example, building trades. And I saw in my notes that well, were they supposed to learn how to do tiling, from tiling the actual site or whatever? And so there was maybe a little pullback on that, but it was supposed to be an autonomous or nearly autonomous site where the students lived and worked at this location and left the site to go to jobs or to go to the other location for counseling, but that essentially, because the place really was functioning as a residence, the students would then be learning to live independently in a residence and be with each other quite a lot, working in the at least two large combined sort of multi-purpose rooms, i.e. the dining room and the rec room, and would also be learning about how to cook for themselves and about chores around the kitchen and so on. By removing all of that from the building, you've gutted that argument. And so rather than, and you heard all the commissioners say the same thing. So rather than pushing back on the elimination on the commissioner's consistent comments that removing the kitchen is not acceptable, come up with a solution to put back the kitchen. And there's no reason why you need to go with DASNY's estimate, which makes no sense, of $150,000 in equipment, unless they were told that this was going to be a commercial kitchen on some extraordinary level. And by the way, I've done commercial kitchens. Unless it's serving a very large restaurant, you don't have $150,000 worth of equipment. So with, we're talking walk-in refrigerators here and all kinds of things like that were not envisioned for this site. So go back and look at how to put the kitchen back and a dining room back and answer my question, why doesn't the administrative function, as we discussed at the last hearing, move down to 1830? And therefore you have all this room where you could have a really nice dining room on the first floor and have a couple of administrative offices in there if necessary, but there's no reason why you need a conference room and all of that stuff at this site, the one that needs to prove deference for educational dormitory purposes. I don't want to have a back and forth during the hearing, but that's the direction you heard from all the commissioners, that the elimination of these functions is not okay. So, we can work on the cellar and how that should be engineered and so on, and whether there's any room to put anything. By the way, put the office down in the cellar if there's not a big space. The offices are little, right? But don't take out the dining room and the kitchen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we appreciate that the board is thinking about how this building is going to function, about the quality of life of the students. We really appreciate that. That's the point of view that the commissioners are taking. But we're going to try to be frank here when we say that we're worried, and we're worried because as Commissioner Scheibetta had said, it seems like, why haven't we had to put a shovel in the ground yet? Why hasn't this building been built? And it's been a challenge for please allow me to finish, Madam Chair. This is what our fear is.
About this, I want you to
I know. I'm telling you that I might not be able to solve the problem. I might not be able to solve the problem because this is a partnership between our client, who is caught a little bit between a rock and a hard place, and their funding partner with the state, who doesn't want to be involved in a city zoning matter. So we have to play middleman between the state and the BSA to find something that works for everybody. And please allow me to finish. I'm concerned that if this process to obtain this amendment continues for 4 to 6 months or longer, that they're going to pull the funding and this building is never going to be built. So we are going to go back to the board, and we're going to do the best we can to respond to the board. Including in that work is we're going to see if it's possible to put some administrative functions in the cellar to put this dining and kitchen on the first floor, because that's what the board has asked. And we think that that's probably a pretty good idea, but that there might be a reason why that's not possible. I'm concerned, though, that when we come back to this board in a month, that the board is going to tell us that it's a no-go regarding any sort of variance here if there's not kitchen and dining functions. And we believe that that is that's not fair, considering that there is going to be direct educational instruction given to these students on site on the zoning lot every single day, and that alone entitles them to Cornell deference. So we're going to go back and we're going to do some work. Okay.
Stop. Okay, stop. All you're doing, which is what I hate, is making reasons for why you can't. I don't want to see why you can't. I want to see you do. It's not up to you to do the design. It's up to Mr. Klouris to do the design, and he's heard the instructions. So Mr. Klouris and your staff in the architecture office, I'm your client. And I, as your client, am telling you, I need the dining room and the kitchen to return to my project. And what I'm sacrificing is administrative offices that are unrelated to the educational aspect of this project. And so reduce the number of administrative offices, move them to the cellar, move them to 1830. Those are my instructions to you. I'm your client and I'm telling you to do that. And ditto for the exterior cladding. Find another solution that's a design solution where you actually think about the materials and find appropriate and inexpensive materials. We have been working a lot with, sort of the cementitious paneling systems with success. They're very good systems. They're not nearly as expensive to install as brick. And maybe that's where you could get your cost savings from, or other kinds of paneling systems. There are other solutions than just stuccoing over insulation with screening. And by the way, the stucco, it's not necessarily cheaper to install because you've got guys who have to sit there with a trowel, and that's a lot of labor also. So find another solution. And I don't want to hear why we can't. It's never a good way to start to respond to the board's comments. So are there any other open issues?
There are many, but we will go back and watch the executive session and do the work that is asked of us.
Great. Okay. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, let's go to the public.
Again, the item we are discussing is 2017-213 BZ, 1808 Coney Island Avenue, Brooklyn. If you wish to call in, it's 646-558-8656. Zoom webinar ID number is 918-2185-4286. Passcode is 482567.
Right. How much time to respond to these questions but thoroughly respond so that we don't have extra hearings unnecessarily?
It's the 25th. Maybe a submission, just a straight month, maybe like a submission on February 25th for first week in March hearing.
I'm not guaranteeing the hearing date. I'm asking you how much time that you need.
At least a month, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Klouris, is that enough time?
Yes, that's enough time.
Okay. I see one person in the hearing room whose name I don't recognize. If you would like to speak on this application, please raise your Zoom hand.
This is 1808 Coney Island Avenue, 2017-213 BZ.
Okay. Okay, then. Thank you very much. Please do listen to both the hearing and the review session and respond to every comment. Don't leave anything out. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board and Commissioners. Thank you, Ms. Matias. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, item number 18, 2018-8 BZ, 1820 Cropsey Avenue, Brooklyn.
Hi, Elise Voladair from Eric Palatnik PC. Also, Mr. Gambino, the architect, is on somewhere.
Yes, he's there. Yeah.
Okay.
That's who was there. Okay. I saw his name keep showing up and I didn't know project. Okay, go ahead.
Raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond on the board member questions?
I do.
Mr. Gambino?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed, Ms. Folder.
Elise Fullader from Eric Polanic PC on behalf of the applicant. We made a submission, you probably didn't see it, but the council and Daryl asked us two different questions, and one of them would answer one of your questions, and it was about the status of the application. There are only 2 objections left to resolve on the application. They're pretty minor objections, and that was sent to the architect on January 22nd, 2021, so the end of last week. An appointment could not be made with the DOB examiner until they receive the updated objection list. So now he's working on getting a appointment. There's currently no open time slots, but they're working on it, and they hope that this will be the last appointment because it's only 2 minor objections left on that DOB objection.
So that means following response to the objections and DOB satisfaction, then there's nothing in the way of the CO.
No. Okay. Exactly.
That's correct.
And I have him here in case you have any additional questions for him. And then we provided a compliance chart in the application showing what we comply and what we don't comply with, as well as photographs showing that they were provided in the last time we came here, that nobody shall park on the sidewalk, and that's in the photographs. I can go through the compliance chart with you if you like.
Okay, you just submitted that, the compliance?
No, that was submitted with the application. It's called board history.
Okay, but you went through it and then it's coordinated with photos? Did anyone?
Well, it doesn't have photos attached to it, but we also provided photos that show, the only thing that would need to show a photo based on those items would be like the sidewalk signs, and we provided sidewalk signs, no parking signs in the photographs.
Okay, that I saw. So why don't you just tell us so that we know it's there? I saw the sidewalk sign. What else were the photos?
Okay, so the photos or the compliance? You want me to go through the compliance?
Well, the photos, so in order to demonstrate compliance, we usually like to see a photo that's.
Some of the things you can't, like, that's why I'll go through the list of conditions. So first is limited to a term of 10 years, yes. That the repair of vehicles shall be limited only to those owned by the dealership. Yes, I'm not really sure how we could provide a photo of that.
A letter from the owner.
We could do that if you need it for next time. That no repairs shall be made on any vehicles that do not belong to the dealership, yes. And no repairs are permitted to be made on any purchased vehicles, yes. So we could put that all in the letter from the owner. That there shall be no vehicles parked on the sidewalk at any time. That is the photos. That signage shall be provided and maintained indicating the prohibition of sidewalk parking. You can see that in the photos. And it says, we'll call someone and come and get you if you park on the sidewalk. That the above conditions shall appear on the certificate of occupancy. That's what we're trying to obtain now, so we're not in compliance because we don't have one yet. That all conditions from the prior resolutions, including those issued under BSA calendar number 18989 BZ not specifically waived by the board, remain in effect, yes. That the certificate of occupancy also indicating this approval and calendar number shall be obtained within 1 year, no, that's why we're here right now. And then that the approved plan shall be considered approved only for that.
Okay. So in terms of the conditions, normally we want to see the conditions on the CO. Since the architect is here, does the CO application include the board's conditions?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Is that something you could just give us, the CO application showing the conditions?
Yeah, I don't know if Elise can actually share that with you.
Yeah. Just give us a copy of the CO application that shows what is proposed for the CO, and then it shows the conditions of the board's prior grant.
So that's something I can submit, Steve, in because they won't grant and they won't close and grant in this hearing anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think, right. Okay. So do any commissioners have comments, questions about this? All right. So then anything open that you wanted to add, Elise? No. Okay. So then let's go to the public.
The application we are discussing is 2018-8BZ, 1820 Cropsey Avenue, Brooklyn. You wish to call in, it is 646-558-8255. 8656. The Zoom webinar ID number is 918-2185-4286, and the passcode is 482567.
Okay, so while we wait to see if anyone calls in, there was that door in the photo that, I don't know.
Which door are you talking about? I called the,
In one of the photos, there's a steel door. All the doors are red or rust color or something. And there's one door where the,
is it the last photograph where it says no parking on sidewalk and there's a door?
I don't know, there, I haven't seen the drawing, but you can look at the door and you can see the top of the door is completely removed of paint.
Okay, we can ask him to paint it.
Yeah, you see this raw door. So please send them out with some enamel paint and repaint that door. Don't just touch it up, repaint the door. And if there's other doors that are in shape and need of painting, paint those, okay? And give us photos. Okay?
Okay.
So how much time then?
Well, can we request to close this? Because
Yeah. No, I'm asking about time. So, how much time then to, so you submitted the compliance analysis already, get the letter from the owner about the repair work only being for the dealership, et cetera.
I'll have him sign a compliance chart for himself that he complies. Like, he'll provide you with a compliance chart and that he complies.
Well, I think it's just
Should be a letter on his letterhead.
Yeah, on his letterhead. That's what I'm saying.
a letter on his letterhead that says nobody is,
Yeah, understood.
repaired, instead of signing a compliance chart.
Okay.
Letter, the only cars that are repaired are related to the dealership and those other issues, okay? Okay, good. So then how much time to paint the door, give photos, get that letter, give us a copy of the CO application that shows the conditions from the prior approval?
I guess the door is the thing that would take the longest, so I don't think that long. Maybe more than like 3 days, but probably not longer than like 2 weeks.
Okay, it's really cold now, so you don't paint when it's freezing, but they would pick a day when it's not freezing, so maybe a month, something like that.
Okay, like, is there a way for you to make that a condition so he doesn't have to wait, or because he was trying to get a final sign off?
Get a final sign off from?
For the extent, because he's stuck because of the extension of time to get a final CO.
Oh, I see, to get the final CO. Well, what else is, he's still waiting for those 2 objections to be cured,
Okay, they're just,
right?
okay.
This will coincide.
We don't know when we're going to get an appointment. He's just stuck and he's trying to move this along, obviously. And
If I can, this is Steve, if I can speak to that regarding the appointment, it's been difficult getting appointments set up with this particular examiner since the hit of COVID. That's been the reason for our delay. So I wish I had a timetable or an exact timetable when we're going to have an appointment, but we don't have that. But we are working on that diligently.
Okay. So I would say if we said 30 days to submit photos of the door painted, that'll probably give you some warmer weather, and ideally and a hearing date, or let's say, because we can close this, a decision date sometime after that also will give you some time. So so let's just say 30 days to provide all the materials, and we'll give you some extra time on the photos just in case it's frigid all the way through till. Okay, good. Okay, so then I'd like to make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay, application is closed.
So I'm just to remind, so I'm giving you basically up until the Friday before the hearing to submit the photos.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Friday before the hearing? Okay, this way we know, in case it's not the regular date. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Final case is Appeals calendar, new cases, item number 19, 2020-3A, 14218 Hook Creek Boulevard, Queens. Todd's in the room.
Good afternoon. Todd
Good
Dale.
afternoon, Mr. Dale. You don't need to be sworn in. Please proceed.
Great. So good afternoon, everybody. We did listen to the review session. I understand the fire department and Department of Transportation still need time to respond and issue letters to the record, and we realize they're going to be controlling. But with respect to a few of the other questions that were raised, I can respond to them briefly, but we can supplement it later with a written submission while we wait for the fellow agencies. With respect to the tax lot apportionment, our office wasn't handling it. The architect's office was. I will touch base with them to find out what the status is. I can speak from experience, not on this case, but other cases. I know the Department of Finance was closed for a long time, so it was difficult to move forward, but I'll find out what the status is. With respect to, then also I know there was a question raised about the subdivision application. I'll ask the architect to clarify on that. I will also ask to see if we can get the information on what the distance would be between the existing building and the proposed building long-term. Just doing rough math, I think it's approximately 55 feet, which would be very close to compliant, even without the angled lot line. And then related to comments made by Commissioner Chanda or Vice Chair Chanda, just to give some background on this, when the city did acquire this portion of Hook Creek, upon all information and belief, they're done with that work. It was done, just to give some history, Hook Creek had a lot of drainage issues. So when they acquired this portion of the street and the surrounding properties, it was really to do a lot of repair work. That work seems to be done. The sidewalks are in place as they're shown on the site plan and the builder's pavement plan. And they really did just totally redo the pavement, improve the drainage, improve the sewer. With respect to the acquisition, I will mark up the documents that we already submitted about the maps. They're not very clear. We actually reached out to the Department of Transportation and City Council trying to get cleaner maps, and the ones that we submitted were actually the best that we had. But to provide some perspective, next to this lot, the portion that was acquired would actually be what would be the half street clause. So the resulting lot is actually still the same dimensions as is shown on the tax map, where it's that irregular lot where the northern boundary is approximately 150 feet and the southern boundary is approximately 140 feet, and then it's 52.95 feet frontage, I think, at Hook Creek. And if you look at the map, and I'll highlight it in a future submission, the area that was condemned, that parcel, is really just the half street area that's adjacent to this site on Hook Creek Boulevard. And that's what allowed them to move forward with the work that they wanted to do. So if you look at it, you can see it, but I'm good with Adobe and making color diagrams, so I'll clarify that for you. All right. I think those are the primary questions that came up. We'll respond to fire department and Department of Transportation accordingly, but we don't anticipate the fire department will have issues with access since Hook Creek is an existing mapped street. And the Department of Transportation, we're hopeful they're not going to have any other issues since they were involved with the condemnation and improvement that's already been completed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Great, thank you. So let's go to the public.
The application we are discussing is 2020-3A, 14218 Hook Creek Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, and then since we have Chief Daly, we're on the screen. Can you give us an estimate about how much time fire department needs for its apparatus review? We can't hear you if you're on. I'm not sure if he's actually on Tony, can you text John? Oh, there he is. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's
okay. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Question is, on this case, this is Hook Creek Boulevard 2020-3A.
Yes, ma'am.
You had sent in a letter saying your apparatus division needs more time to review.
That is correct.
Yeah, can you tell us approximately how much time you need?
I'm meeting with Captain Malloy this coming Wednesday to
Okay.
discuss this application.
Okay, so a couple of weeks
1
then?
week.
Okay. All right, great, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, I don't think we have anyone who dialed in. So then, Mr. Dale, how much time to respond to those?
To be honest, our highlighting the distance, getting some history, we're going to respond more quickly than the fire department, and I suspect the Department of Transportation will take the longest based on history. So we're open to whatever timing the board feels is appropriate, but I think at least a few weeks just to give other agencies a chance.
Okay. So, maybe Tracy could comment on that, or who would be able to comment on how much time DOT would probably need to respond?
Well, DOT sent an email to Jolene that they're working on getting the letter ready for this application. This is her email. This is from Kalila Stewart, who's the project manager.
Okay.
And so she's saying, in case we can't get it to you in time, the comments are mainly concerning a newly completed reconstruction of the Hook Creek Boulevard that will affect when the applicant will be able to obtain a permit for work from DOT's OCMC, which has nothing to do with us. If there ends up being any requested site plan changes, those can be made before the applicant submits plans to DOB and to DOT for a BPP review. So it doesn't give me a time frame, but I don't know if that helps you.
No, well, so it doesn't sound like they have issues with the application in front of us.
It seems more like further down the road.
Right, so maybe an email to Kalila just to say, just verify that you're okay with us proceeding with this application. Okay, and then, so maybe I'll just write sort of 3 weeks to submit these things, because it doesn't sound like DOT has to do any additional analysis. And of course, with the agencies, we can always allow them right before the hearing date. So to submit right before the hearing date. So then I'm just wondering.
You want to close?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, obviously, if there were a problem from any of them. So let's see. Fire department did ask that we wait because they want to review the apparatus question. So Chief Daly, what if we were to close this? And if it turned out there was a problem, we reopen?
No objection, Madam Chair.
Well, let's try that. If council is okay with this approach.
That sounds good to us, and we're Inspector Daly and I are in contact. So if anything comes up, you can reach out to me directly too, so we can work through it. But I don't anticipate any issues based on the fact that Hook Creek is a city map street.
Okay. And our council?
Yes, no issues.
Okay, great. All right, so then let's make a motion to close, and I'm indicating 3 weeks to submit for the applicant, but obviously that effectively gives 6 weeks to the agencies to submit, okay? All right, so a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter? Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so this concludes the public hearing for January 25th, 2021. The 2 p.m. session, we will resume tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Yay. Thank you, everybody.